blow as one, they will turn the tide. We are marching on, standing side by side, and we'll carry on until all the fire's gone, blown away, away to lands beyond.
Winds blow as one. They tried to oppress us in the pain out of our lives. Still they are the flame for dreadful fires. They tried to undermine us night by night. Now they are a massive full of lies.
They never learned how to stand as one and how to abandon fear. We will be their storm, will close it in.
If I die better, fight our blood upon my steel. If I die better, tell them I stood and never kneel. If I die better, my soul will be saved and gone. I won't die better. I ride on with six winds blowing as one. Ow, ow. They did not await us, and the kingdom we will raise. Yes, we are the nightmare deep within. They underestimate us, our faith and life, for freedom and a new life to begin.
They will never bring us down. They never rule our lives. We will be a tempest rising high.
If I die better, fight our blood upon my steel. If I die better, tell them I stood and never kneel. If I die better, my soul will be saved and gone. I won't die better. I ride on with six winds blowing as one.
What might end will start again. We will never die. We will be a thunderstorm of life. Six winds blow as one, they will turn the tide. We are marching on, standing side by side, and we'll carry on until all the fire's gone, blown away, away to lands beyond.
If I die better, fight our blood upon my steel. If I die better, tell them I stood and never kneel. If I die better, my soul will be saved and gone. I won't die better. I ride on with six winds blowing as one. Ow, ow.
Okay, good morning, everybody. How are we all doing today? It's Larsen Live. It is June 22nd. How's everybody? Have a happy Juneteenth? I sure did. But yes, we opened up with Van Canto's If I Die in Battle. Van Canto, of course, being the seminal a cappella metal band. They also provided another song, I forgot the title of it, as an intro for the Spoony One's Counter Monkey reviews, which he doesn't do anymore because the Spoony One is currently in a padded room slamming his head into the wall. In spirit, if not in actuality. No, he just lives with his brother instead. He moved into a house in Arizona, then his girlfriend dumped him, then his dog died, and yeah, he's not doing good. But yes, how is everybody today? The title of the stream is Why Is There So Much Orc Romance? Now, we'll get to that near the end of the stream when we talk about the arts and culture. But needless to say, my lovely wife Daphne was doing Stuff Your Kindle, which I say should be called Kindle Cram. It's not, but it should be. For those of you not aware, Stuff Your Kindle is a thing where, Jeff Bezos, in his magnanimity, says, I'm going to give you free ebooks, or very cheap ebooks. Free, yes, my wife clarifies, free. So yeah, she was looking through the, the fantasy and the romance, and I was not impressed by the current crop of reading material. But we'll get to that later. Anyway, let's get right to the news. So, we of course all remember the Oceangate disaster, in which a group of people went down to explore the ruins of the Titanic in a tin can submersible piloted by PlayStation controllers. They all died. Well, guess who's taking another swing at the bat? The Oceangate co-founder is organizing a trip to explore a sinkhole in the Bahamas. It's not quite as deep as the Titanic wreckage. It's only about 600 feet deep. So, I guess if this one collapses, you won't immediately be just crushed like a tube of toothpaste. It'll just be a slower, more asphyxiating death. But, one wonders how they're going to fix this submersible. Perhaps they will use GameCube controllers or Nintendo Wii remotes. Why not go old school, pull out the NES controller? All you need is 2 buttons, goddammit. That's all you need. Okay. C-Punk Messiah says, I've been missing the stream due to band practice scheduling. I play bass, by the way. Ah, very good, sir. As long as you're not playing the bass, that would not be so good. Fish slapping. But the bass is good. I play a little guitar myself. It's probably my weakest, well, it's actually not the weakest instrument I own. I own 6 instruments. In order of my competence, it is saxophone, piano, harmonica, guitar, violin, and trumpet. The violin and trumpet I purchased for very cheap at garage sales. I barely play them at all. The guitar I play, okay, but if you want to get your money's worth with Larsen Halleck's musicality, you want to get the saxophone. Okay, Ponythroat said something about the orc romance versus knoll romance. Those knolls will never escape me, no matter how hard I try. C-Punk Messiah says, orc romance differs depending on the culture said orc grew up in. Yeah, this is Twee and D in action, but like I said, we'll get to that later on. Yeah, Oceangate's doing it again. Hopefully the DualShock won't fail us this time. I think it will. Yeah, I'm curious as to whether or not the founder of Oceangate is going to put his money where his mouth is and actually go down in the submersible himself. I've always said that any leader who does not put himself at the same risk as his men is no leader at all. And I stand by that. And yes, this submersible still looks like a hunk of shit. Yeah, I would not go on this. Moving on from that, from Deep Sea Follies, the Tankies were at it again on Twitter. And yes, I do refuse to call it X. So saith John Dutton, the people who say immigrants took my job are so funny. If somebody fresh off the boat is competing with you for wages, maybe you're an unskilled loser and you shouldn't have a job in the first place. A Twitter user named Pagliacci the Hated, with all due regards to Mr. Leon Cavallo, he puts into words something that I've always felt but I can never quite articulate. The idea that the working poor deserve to lose their jobs to cheaper imported labor is the kind of take I would expect from a cartoon caricature of a capitalist wearing a top hat and monocle. But apparently, this is something that leftists believe nowadays. Yes, I too remember when the left wing cared about domestic labor and protected them. In fact, many of the out and out socialist, labor unions and other labor policies in the United States in the mid-century were highly anti-illegal immigrant because they saw them correctly as scab labor, including the UFW, Cesar Chavez's outfit, the United Farm Workers, sorry, which is probably why you don't hear much about, old Caesar anymore. One might ask, why would a group of people who claim to be protecting the working man want to undercut the working man at every single opportunity? And then I realized what the problem is. Not the problem so much as the reason why. They just hate nations. They especially hate white people, and anything that hurts a country's, integrity, and especially anyone of European descent, well, that's just peachy keen. That is the number one principle of these people. Just cut the legs out from a nation. Turn the whole world into just a, biomass of illiterate jabbering brappies doing grunt labor for, the capitalists in the glittering ivory towers. They want feudalism. That's it. Okay, my wife says most of those romance novels, referring to the orc ones, are reverse harems. Probably not that different. I mean, I don't know. I think traditional orky culture, at least in the Elder Scrolls, they are very much in the traditional harem sense. Like, I know that the Elder Scrolls makes it a point that the orcs, the Orsimer, are highly patriarchal. Personally speaking, I don't think harems of any stripe are good. I mean, obviously it's good to be in the harem if you if you have the harem, on paper anyway. I mean, I personally don't think it's good. But for every man who has 4 wives, that means 3 men are not getting married, and it hurts society on the whole. I'm just saying the Middle East is highly sexually repressed, and they look up the porn all the time. It's because 3 men aren't getting any while she caboose is hoarding all the women. Now, I, of course, I do this magnanimously because I'm quite capable of having a harem myself. I just choose not to. A, because my wife is very lovely, the best woman I could ever hope for, and B, because I do it for the good of society. It's for the good of society, so, I don't hoard women so that my brethren, my fellow men, can also partake. Fran LPK says, anyway, I want to learn bass. Pony Throat says they should use Xbox 360 controllers. It just works. It just works every time for the last 19 years. I feel like crumbling into dust and blowing away. Yeah, I mean, speaking of old controllers, I actually visited my parents' place last week, and I found my old Nintendo Wii, and my Wiimote still works like a charm. The sensors, everything. I mean, say what you will about Nintendo's, IPs and their business policies. Their hardware is always been good. I still should go see that that Game Boy that took the hand grenade in Desert Storm in New York City, but I've never gotten around to it. C-Punk Messiah says, don't get mad at the men wanting to provide for their family. Get mad at the ones exploiting them for cheap labor. I agree 100%. Robert Diaz says, people are undoing the trend of working with your hands as a bad job. That trend made the modern young unskilled labor entitled to no end. Yes, unfortunately, the young people are going back to working with their hands. How dare they? It was a week or two ago that I discussed the report. It was like, well, America could have, suffered economically, but thanks to cheap scab labor, America remained competitive economically. Because otherwise, the wages would have gone up, and God forbid that happen. And the last thing we want is for wages to go up. As long as the stonk line goes up, that's everything is good. Line go up, therefore good. Ponythroat says, Tolkien was very unclear on orc reproduction, changing what was canon depending on what he had for lunch that day. Yeah, I think the biggest thing Tolkien regretted in life was that he was never really clear on the nature of orcdom. Because sometimes he made it seem like orcs were like just sort of made by being evil. Sometimes he said there were good orcs. Yeah, he never really resolved that. It's not like the Tolkien estate has any plans on doing anything besides selling out to Amazon. Hey, Ponythroat says that one woman is enough. Imagine having 10 women who all hate each other. I mean, yeah, that's also a issue. The whole polygamy thing, or polyandry for that matter, it's not good. There's a reason why we stopped doing it. Ponythroat says, Xbox 360 controllers are the best PC controllers. I have a couple of Dual Shocks that plug into a USB, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good for playing River City Ransom. Now, of course, my darling wife doesn't care for River City Ransom, but that's neither here nor there. Just one tiny little flaw on the vision of perfection that is Daphne Halleck. But yeah, tankies can't stop sucking. And speaking of things that vaguely relate to communism, kind of, in Quebec, we're leaving America and going to Canada now. A Quebecois restaurant owner was giving free meals to people in need. He printed out little vouchers, and the homeless people could collect them and get free food. He was arrested for doing so. Why? Because the free meal vouchers were written in English. Apparently, that was the excuse. Personally, I would put it more. I would say it's more likely that the Trudeau government just doesn't want people helping the homeless of their own volition. So they just make some excuse about hone multicultural, Quebecois like Frenchiness. But yeah, this is not good. This kind of thing happened in America too. It was a while back. Like this guy in Los Angeles built little like houses for homeless people. Had like a little solar-powered generator, little chemical toilet. I mean, obviously it wasn't much, but it was better than living on the street. And the government literally came in and demolished all his houses and said, no, you can't help those homeless people. No. No. I mean, personally, if I were government, bureaucrat asshole man, I'd frankly be pretty happy that somebody was doing my job for me. It's less work for me, right? But apparently, it's better to do the job poorly than to have it done at all. My wife tells me all the time about how in South Africa people would just have to pave in the roads themselves because the government doesn't do it for them. It's I'm not one of these libertarian lunatics who thinks everything should be like privatized and you should have to pay for everything. But yeah, sometimes if the government can't provide, people should step up and do it themselves, and you shouldn't punish them for doing so. Fran LPK says Canada, with an accent over the A, sucks balls. I mean, the United States is only marginally better at this point. If only legally. Because, at least... I mean, Canada and America are kind of neck and neck to see who can suck more these days. But, I guess Joe Biden isn't a fruity drama kid who dresses up in blackface, so I guess we have that over Canada in terms of leadership. Ponythroat says, all these orc romances and yet no gnoll romance. Maybe because the G in consent stands for gnoll. Maybe it's pronounced Gunnol, like that old game Landstalker for Sega Genesis. It's a game I played a little bit of, and I never quite got around to finishing it. C-Punk Messiah says, I'm convinced that tankies go for communism just because they were the enemies of the fascists, who are not so different, to be honest. I mean, the tankies will try to announce that, like, oh, it was Russia did all the work in World War II, ignoring the fact that the Soviet Union and the Nazis were allied until August of 1941. They literally teamed up to do an Arc de Triomphe on Poland, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the Anglosphere sure sucks nowadays. And if you need more proof of that, let's go over to Old Blighty, Old Albion, the UK. So, the BBC has some job openings. They need an assistant producer for the classical music block on BBC Radio. This role is advertised as part of our BBC Extended Program, GRAMME, for disabled people. To apply, you should identify as disabled, neurodivergent, or dead. So yes, dead people can apply to work at the BBC. I mean, I would make the inevitable joke about how that would probably explain some of their programming, but yeah, whatever, I'll take it. Yeah, you got to be dead to work at the Beeb. Yeah, waka waka. How does one identify as dead? Is it like you dress up as a zombie, or is it like a lich? Because I mean, you have your mental facilities all in order, so I guess you'd be like a lich, little Koshe the Deathless or something. Speaking of liches, and speaking of Larsen breaking out the old video games, boy, I'm regretting selling Gauntlet Dark Legacy for the GameCube. That's a game you bring the whole family over and play. And the first world boss is a lich. Also, yeah, there's a franchise that hasn't done much in years, Gauntlet. Who knows why? Maybe it's because everybody's like this sort of delightful fantasy stereotype, which includes women with the dreaded boob armor. And we can't have that anymore. Pony Throat, referring to classical music, says, it's about classical music. They need somebody who was there. Perhaps, which is, I guess that's why they're opening up to the lich market, and only the lich market, liches and vampires and such. C-Punk Messiah says, referring to the tankies, not only that, they just bust loads over the crummy-ass T-34 tank. Yes, they do. They also conveniently ignore the fact that the United States gave the Soviet Union shitloads of weapons, supplies, and food, to the point where even Joseph Stalin said that they wouldn't have been able to win if it wasn't for the U.S. helping them. Oh, and also, the Franklin Roosevelt administration literally sent industrialists and entire factories over to the Soviet Union just because. Yes, that man was remarkably naive about the Soviet Union. And I'll let you decide why. Valentinus of the Forest says, to identify as dead for the BBC, just say you're goth. There's many ways I can interpret that joke, and I'll let you decide which one I go for. But yes, you can identify as dead and get a job at the Beeb. I wasn't even aware that the BBC still had a radio branch. I know NBC and CBS and stuff had radio. Do they even have radio anymore? I don't think so. Moving away from the Anglosphere for a bit, going to a place that the Anglosphere kind of put its foot up its ass. Let's talk about Iraq. A Kevin Castley, who's a man with a blue Twitter checkmark, so you know he's important. He has Ukrainian flags and bald eagles in his little emojis, says, the 2003 liberation of Iraq stands as the shining achievement of American, British, and coalition foreign policy in the 21st century. I don't think so. I mean, I would argue that Desert Storm was a brilliant military display. We smacked the shit out of the fourth largest army in the world in 1 month. You know what we didn't do in 1991? We didn't nation build. We didn't stand around with our thumbs up our ass trying to make them a democracy for 20 years. And, you know, I guess the Iraqi government that we propped up is still standing. So I guess you could call it a win. I guess. Sure feels like a lot of nothing, though. At least it wasn't a total obvious failure like Afghanistan. Yeah, I don't know when this happened. Actually, I do know when it happened. I do know when exactly you know, big government liberals started worshiping George Bush all of a sudden. It was when Trump came to power and they have a new Republican to kind of dump on. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, I miss the principled leadership of W. No, you don't, okay? Look, I came to manhood during the Bush years. Bush was elected in 2001. You know, I was 10 years old. I was in fifth grade. And, you know, I was 18 and a senior in high school when Obama got elected. So I lived through 8 years of Bush. I assure you, nobody liked him. Everybody was, you know, calling him, you're a Nazi, you're an imperialist, this and that and the other thing. Now all of a sudden everybody pretends like, you know, they like him now. I don't believe this. I'm starting to realize that the left wing has never really been anti-war. They're just anti-war against communist countries. Pony Throat from to the T-34 asks, what is wrong with it? Might have been mechanically sus and uncomfortable, but it had good aspects too. I mean, it was a decent tank for what it was. I'd say it was comparable to the Sherman M4. I mean, you got the tankies jacking off the T-34. You have the Nazis jacking off the Tiger tank, which is I mean, the Tiger tank was great when it worked properly. It usually didn't. That's neither here nor there. For the record, the kill to death ratio for Tigers versus American tanks was only like 2 to 1. Or I think it might have been even less, like 1.7 to 1. All right, we got a good turnout today. 12 people. Fran LPK says, I started to like Bush when he dodged those shoes. Such great reflexes for an old man. I mean, I understand why like evangelicals like Bush because Bush pretends to be a cowboy and pretends to have a Texas accent. By the way, look that up. Like his family is literally like old blue blood like WASP colonials from Connecticut, which is why his dad doesn't have an accent. But when he ran for governor of Texas, W literally hired a dialect coach to train him to talk in a Southern accent, so that people would think he was down with the common man, when in fact he's not. But yeah, everybody just loves Bush all of a sudden. Like the evangelicals, I can understand why, but I don't understand why these alleged liberals like Bush now just because he's not Trump. C-Punk Messiah says, the YouTuber Laserpig called them commiboos and wearaboos. Yes, well said. There's a lot of both. But yeah, it's good to see that there's still like, Bushite and Blairite, big government neo-lib warmongers out there that are, not ashamed to show their faces. See what else we got going on here. Oh yeah, here's something interesting in archaeological news, or I guess sociological news. there was some interesting discussion over the Wikipedia article for cargo cults the other day. And what was interesting about it was that the description literally says a lot of nothing. It literally uses a lot of verbiage to say absolutely nothing, and you would literally have no idea what a cargo cult is if you were to read this. It's very Michel Foucault-ish, that you use a lot of words to say nothing, to, dare I say, deliberately obfuscate what's going on. I'm just going to read it out loud. This is the most recent definition of what a cargo cult is on Wikipedia. A cargo cult is an umbrella term to denote various spiritual and political movements that arose amongst indigenous Melanesians during the early to mid 20th century. The definition of cargo cult is vague, having been used for almost any sort of organized village-based social movement with religious and political aspirations, or a variety of forms of social unrest that ethnographers elsewhere tagged millenarianism, messianism, nativistic, vitalistic, revivalistic, or culture contact or adjustment movements. Cargo cults were often organized around a central charismatic prophet who either pushed for the revival of ancient traditions or the adoption of new traditions, often in the forms of ritual acts like dancing, marching, and flag raising, to appease the ancestral spirits. Many accounts focus on the acquisition of Western material goods. The definition of cargo was broader than that. Many such movements focus on spiritual salvation or political expressions of a desire for independence. Okay, so here's a pop quiz. What is a cargo cult? Did that explain anything? I mean, I know what a cargo cult is, but let's say you're some, 16-year-old whippersnapper who is who's suddenly taking a real interest in anthropology. Pause for laughter as I think of any of the moron kids nowadays being interested in anthropology. But, oh boy, Wally, I'm going to go look up what a cargo cult is. Also, pause for laughter at anybody being named Wally nowadays. You know, when I keep describing the young whippersnappers, and I keep imagining this sort of Norman Rockwell-esque, bright-eyed, bushy-tailedness, and that's not what's going on. I digress. But yeah, did that explain anything? Like, that was a lot of words to say nothing at all. Here, I'm not the kind of guy to edit Wikipedia, but if I were, I would say something like, a cargo cult is a new religious movement arising in Melanesia in which Melanesians imitated American or Western military activity to get cargo and material goods. There, that's much simpler. Then, you go on and you explain the history, you explain, the practices. You explain, what's going on. You explain the John Frum movement. You explain what they're doing. Namely, they saw these white men, but not always, getting shit out of these planes for nothing. They didn't seem to be doing any work based on Melanesian ideas. So therefore, all these, funny rituals like marching around and raising flags and saluting, that must be appeasing the gods. You can get that cargo. So once the army left, they started doing imitations of, army stuff. They built fake airfields and, communications towers and coconut radios and, wooden planes and, saluting and marching around. Because obviously that's gonna bring the stuff. I mean, I'm just sitting here, in my linen parachute pants, shirtless, and I just explained cargo cults better than that mealy-mouthed, postmodernist horseshit. And, dare I say that, this article, the way it's written, that is itself a cargo cult. It's like they're going through the motions of, serious scientific and sociological discussion, but it's basically a crude facsimile because they don't understand, what they're saying. That's, of course, assuming they're not deliberately writing it in an obfuscated way because it might come off a bit colonialist if they just described it in plain English. it's like they wrote an article about cargo cults, but they did it while being a cargo cult for scientific inquiry. Cargoception, one might say. Okay, let's see. Ponythroat says the Tiger tank barely had any more frontal armor than the T-34 and the Sherman. It's all around 100 millimeters when accounting for slope. I wasn't aware that my chat was full of tank drivers. Fran LPK says, I think it was because Bush was a party dude who found Jesus and changed his ways. At least that's the official story. Yes, that's also why the evangelicals like him. I mean, I don't really interact with too many religious people all that much. What I should say is I don't really know too much about specifically American evangelicalism. The Beckloff is another podcaster I listen to. He actually, he's from bumfuck Pennsylvania, and he does a lot of evangelical types. He's religious, but he is not a pain in the ass about it. And he actually does have a bunch of videos and podcasts about his kind of clashes with the more puritanical evangelical types. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually got that line from him. The whole idea of evangelicals like Bush because he pretends to be a cowboy. Ponythroat says, try the PT definition. A cargo cult is a group of easily impressed islanders who make their own fan club about seeing a radar dish on time or some shit. Well, yeah, I mean, I think I gave it in about as plain English as you could. It's a religion where they mimic Western military procedures in order to get, manna from heaven, so to speak. And, it is actually pretty interesting. It does kind of coalesce with, millenarian movements, rebellions against colonialism. And, there's, John Frum, which Valentinus mentions, deplane, John Frum bring gifts. Excuse me, Tattoo was way too intelligent to, fall for that thing. And yes, I remember distinctly that I had to explain to my wife what deplane was. Because apparently they didn't get Fantasy Island in South Africa. Smiles, everybody, smiles. Yes, I do own a white suit. Now, granted, I'm not a good-looking man like Ricardo Montalban, but nobody is. C-Punk Messiah says, Larsen, I keep picturing you as a 1950s-style pipe-smoking dad. I mean, yeah, pretty much I am. And, should I have children in the future, I will be a pipe-smoking dad. If maybe I'll just hold it when I give them stern but loving lectures. Valentina says, anybody remember the Prince Philip cargo cult from Castom? Yes, the good people of Vanuatu. It's not even all of Vanuatu, just one group of people. They worshipped Prince Philip. And they actually there was actually a reality show on the BBC, funny enough, where they kind of brought them to the UK, and, they, kind of went around London. And then it ended with them having a private audience with Prince Philip. For religious respectability, they were not, they didn't show what they were talking about. Let me see. Yes, there was a September 2007 channel. Sorry, it's not BBC. It was Channel 4. As if I get British channels. I mean, I probably do. I have. I'll explain my TV situation in a second. Yeah, Channel 4 broadcast Meet the Natives, a reality show about 5 men from the movement on a visit to Britain. They had an audience with Philip. Gifts were exchanged. Prince Philip gave them a photograph, and they in turn gave him a traditional pig-killing club called a Null Null. I mean, I could go for some of that. Yeah, so they also celebrated the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They hoisted the Union Jack, they danced, and they had a pig roast. According to anthropologists, they have now changed their veneration to King Charles III with his big sausage fingers. Yeah, the cargo cult thing is actually really interesting. There's actually a couple of Melanesian cargo cults. Like there's John Frum, who's a white, like he's like a white, United States Marine. And there's also Tom Navy, who's a black man, who's like an American sailor. Beyond that, I know very little about the difference between the two. I imagine they function pretty similarly. But, I'm not going to judge them for their religious beliefs. Let them do as they do. But yeah, so with regards to my television situation, Ponythroat says, I doubt you can pick up all British TV channels. Like, I have a little satellite dish that plugs into my TV. I get, like, weird channels. Like, I got the F1 racing channel. I have a channel that shows nothing but old cowboy movies. I get CBS, but not NBC. I don't really watch much live TV anyway. Hey, Biff Slankovich says here, hello, sir. Ponythroat says some of the things they built are quite impressive, having been made of sticks and straw. Yes, I mean, I'm not gonna like demean or belittle the cargo cultists. They are what they are. My wife confirms I do dress like a 50s pipe smoking dad. Ponythroat says Channel 5 doesn't even reach Scotland and Wales. I mean, they are in two completely different directions, sir. I can't imagine they even have TV in Wales. Don't they just, like, watch sheep all day? But yes, I really hate that about academia, the way that nobody can just, get to the goddamn point and just say, what the thing's about. They have to use all this, pomo jargon that doesn't mean anything. Just just get to the goddamn point. Okay. The talk page on the Wikipedia article for cargo cults is also funny. Somebody addresses the exact same complaint I had. Somebody who has no familiarity with the concept wouldn't understand what's going on here. The section is poorly written and grammatically unclear. The intro to the Encyclopedia Britannica article is a good example of a helpful lead. Why don't you just use that? A moderator says maybe the lead could be better worded. It does reflect what the academic sources have to say on the subject, unlike the unsourced nonsense you tried to replace it with. Yeah, apparently the Encyclopedia Britannica is unsourced nonsense. Dare I say, like, the fact that they don't, you got to try really hard to define what a cargo cult is and not even use the term cargo once. Yeah, the gods may or may not be crazy, but the Wikipedia editors are really stupid. Shinsei Gammon says the Welsh watch Super Ted all day. What the hell is Super Ted? Let me look this up. Okay, Super Ted is some kind of cartoon show about a teddy bear who kicks ass. Every week, Super Ted, played by Derek Griffiths, with the Spotty Man, John Pertwee, would save the world from Texas Pete. Also, there was like a gay skeleton or something. Which word of God confirmed to be gay, because, it's what the children want. They want gay skeletons. Oy. And it's better than Dr. Snuggles. Boy, we're name dropping a lot of weirdo British cartoons nowadays. Ponythroat says, what about the escargot cult? where you go to snurch and atone for your snit. I don't. Are these all puns about snails? Biff which says Wrexham. Ah, yes, Wrexham FC. That does take place in Wales. I've been meaning to watch that at some point. So yes, I guess Wales does have two television shows that are good. They got Super Ted and Wrexham FC. Welcome to Wrexham, whatever it's called. Valentinus of the Forest asks, where is Napoleon Chagnon when you need him? He's very tepidly being reincorporated back into the anthropology field. I mean, they all despise him still. But since his findings were vindicated, they can't just ignore him like they used to. But yeah, cargo cults are a pretty simple thing that nobody quite understands. Or rather, people do understand it, but people choose to not understand it because it would be racist to understand what it is. Yes, one Twitter post says it best. This article is literally that clip from Jimmy Neutron where he keeps calling salt sodium chloride. No, dude, you said sodium chloride. It's the same as salt. You could have just said salt instead. We know you're a genius. You don't have to say big words to sound smarter. Nobody cares how smart you are. Well said. Anyway, my favorite iteration of the cargo cult thing is when American soldiers on Papua New Guinea showed them the Phantom comic books, and they started like literally worshiping the Phantom. They started painting the Phantom on their like shields and stuff and charging into battle. I'm John Walker, the man who cannot die. I mean, to be fair, if you're gonna worship some kind of like jungle spirit warrior man, you can't go worse than the Phantom. My wife brought me some iced coffee. Thank you. I don't care what anybody says. I like that Phantom movie with Billy Zane. Ponythroat says Napoleon Chagnon interacted with natives and didn't even get eaten, like Michael Rockefeller and Captain Cook. Well, I mean, to be fair, it's different natives. Captain Cook went to Hawaii. Michael Rockefeller went to New Guinea. And Napoleon Chagnon went to Brazil. Perhaps the Yanomamo were less cannibalistic. Alfariga says, my dad uses sodium chloride as an insult for industrial that doesn't have other minerals in it. Well, you got to iodize that salt. Anyway, moving on from that. See what else we got here. Yeah, I guess we can talk about like the silly side of things now. Get to the pop culture and stuff. I mean, not that much else in the way of news to talk about. From discussing film, Spaceballs 2 is in the works with Mel Brooks and Josh Gad. If they don't call it Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money, I'll be very disappointed in you, Mel Brooks. Dare I say, I don't know why you need to parody Star Wars when Disney's doing a pretty damn good job of that already. But, yeah, I mean, you could go hard on this, but I don't know if 92-year-old Mel Brooks has it in him anymore to go hard. We shall see. I am tepidly optimistic about it. mean, is he going to go hard and attack, like, the Kathleen Kennedy regime? He should. Okay, Alpha Marigi says, my dad doesn't like ionization, only eats the pink salt. Ah, the Himalayan stuff. I'm still debating whether I should go to one of those hippy-dippy stores in the city and buy Ting Sha bells. The temptation's always there. Okay, Alpha Marigi says, referring to Mel Brooks, yes, sorry. Alpha Marigi says, History of the World Part 2 was pretty bad. I didn't see it. I mean, I haven't really seen anything Mel Brooks has done since Robin Hood Men in Tights. And that was a long time ago. But then again, I do still say, you know, a toll's a toll and a roll's a roll. And all that. So, you know, maybe he can pull one out. Pointy Throat says, if you want the pink salt, get one of those salt lamps and grind it up. My castrating bitch of an ex-fiance had a salt lamp. So, I'll let you judge for yourself how well that worked to, you know, mellow her vibes. And speaking of, you know, negative vibes and negative waves, rest in peace to Donald Sutherland. You know, very much a, you know, he's one of the that guyest of that guys. He was never really a leading man just because, well, he's kind of funny looking, but, you know, he was in many movies that I've seen in my life. The young people know him as the president from the Hunger Games, and he was literally eulogized on multiple websites. You know, Donald Sutherland, best known for the Hunger Games, died yesterday at 88 years old. Excuse me, hold the fuck on there. Donald Sutherland is not best known for the Hunger Games, okay? You gotta harsh it with those negative waves, man. He's known as, you know, Captain Oddball, the professor from Animal House, the guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like, the Hunger Games. These young people don't have any culture. C-Punk Messiah says, I'm nervous about the Spaceballs sequel, lest you forget the abysmal cartoon. Oh, God, yeah, that cartoon was ass. Yeah, again, I remain very cautiously optimistic, but I don't know if he can do it anymore. And maybe he'll just back off and let, like, the young people kind of take over. But yeah, rest in peace, Donald Sutherland. Also, happy birthday, John Goodman. You know, also, you know, a solid actor who can carry a movie on his shoulders. Oh yeah, also something funny that happened on Twitter was a Billy Carter, who is at the brother of Jimmy Carter, but I don't think it's actually Billy Carter, says, folks, today I learned that Hanna-Barbera ripped off its own show, showing clips of Goober and the Ghost Chasers. I and many other people then had to inform this person that Hanna-Barbera had, in fact, like 100 Scooby-Doo ripoffs. In actuality, I looked it up. I did actually look this up, and it was 21. There were 21 Scooberts Doos that they made that were not Scooby-Doo, but they were basically Scooby-Doo. And I know. I guess when you get a winning formula, you just run into the goddamn ground. Also, part of the reason is that Hanna-Barbera, you know, being an animation studio, they're work for hire, and you know, Scooby-Doo aired on I think CBS back in the day. So other networks like, hey, we want some Scooberts, but you know, we can't get Scoobert because it's on CBS. So make something that's like Scooby-Doo, but not. And yeah, then that leads us to, you know, Goober and the Ghost Chasers, Jabberjaw, the Funky Phantom, the Rickety Rocket, Fangface, Mr. T, and on and on and on with this shit. Also, oh yeah, Captain Caveman, Speed Buggy, The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan. There was an I Dream of Jeannie cartoon. There was the Shmoo, which did some guys who were not Little Abner. There was another dog, and just gotta hammer that goddamn concept into the ground here. Oh yeah, fun fact. Me, the lady, and our friend did an escape room that was Scooby-Doo themed. We kicked its ass. I made a joke like, so since the story of this escape room is that we're working with the Mystery Machine gang, so I guess we're like Jabberjaw or something. The clerk had no idea what I was talking about, and that upsets me. Nobody knew who the Funky Phantom was either. Oh yeah, fun fact, the Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan was literally the first and only time that an actual Chinese person played Charlie Chan. That was Key Luke, who played his son in the movies in the 30s. Bill Sienkiewicz says he was Pinky in The Dirty Dozen. Yes, yes. Donald Sutherland's, he's here and there and everywhere. Rest in peace. Alf Rodriguez says, the Spaceballs cartoon was a Hulu show, and he was too old to do much work on it. Wasn't it on G4? The writers they hired were modern-day SNL rejects. I could have sworn it was on G4. Yeah, also, G4 always sucked. Like, I know they tried to revive it a couple years ago, and it tanked, because everyone's like, oh, like, it's run by some, scowling, like, lesbian, and she ruined it. But, no, it always sucked. Adam Sessler was a goddamn hack. He's always been a hack. Morgan Webb is like very much one of those women who has naked contempt for her audience. Like, they always do that. They always bring in some like pretty face who, I'm sure she plays some games. I'm not gonna say she's like a fraud or anything, but she clearly had just naked contempt for the geeks who are watching G4. Mr. Deed says Spaceballs 2 will be woke as fuck with Josh Gad involved. I don't know what Josh Gad does besides voicing a snowman. Ponythroat says, with me, every room is an escape room. Very, very low-hanging fruit. But yes, to pay tribute to Donald Sutherland, let's all just open our mouths and point and like roar at people on the street. Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah, I still say that like the first remake is the best one, followed by the original. Yeah, sorry, Kevin McCarthy. But yeah, I'm genuinely surprised that Mindy Kaling does her shitty Velma show. Like, why aren't they doing like darker and edgier like versions of all the other Scooberts? The Scoobies Doos, like the Clue Club, Jabberjaw, Partridge Family 2200 AD. There were 21 of these goddamn things, and to think that this all literally started because parents complained about Space Ghost being too violent. Hey, it's like Roger Myers said on The Simpsons. If there's no plagiarism, there's no animation industry. Yes, also apparently there's in the cartoon Jellystone, they did a whole episode with like all the fake Scooby dudes together. One wonders if Bob Denver and Warren Beatty and the other gang from Dobie Gillis realized what horrors they unleashed upon the world. Alf Rodriguez says that the History of the World Part 2 was on Hulu. Ah, my mistake. Yes, Spaceballs, the animated series, was on G4. As one of many utter abominations that G4 crapped out onto the airwaves. Seapunk Messiah says, referring to Space Ghost, Brack and Zorak were actually pretty intimidating in the actual cartoon. Yes, they were. I, of course, like many '90s kids, I was first exposed to Space Ghost with the comedy like talk show, Coast to Coast, which yeah, I mean, having actually watched the original Space Ghost, it's pretty cool actually. And also, there was like a comic book in the, I think like the late like 2000s, like 2007, 2008, where they tried to kind of sync up the original Space Ghost with the talk show. It didn't go really well because it's like, oh, here's a Thaddeus Ghostal and his family gets murdered, but he's also like a talk show guy. It sucked. But I will say in that comic book, his wife was literally drawn to look like Bjork because in the show, Space Ghost married Bjork. But yeah, like the parents said, oh, Space Ghost is too much violence. Because, back in those days, you could show somebody just getting starched, laid the fuck out on a cartoon show. You can't do that anymore. So then, Bill and Joe were like, well, the school marms don't like Space Ghost. What can we do? Let's just take a bunch of concepts from Dobie Gillis and Archie and just have them driving a truck and like in a dog. And okay, good, we got this. Also, I'd refer to the Mystery Machine as a truck. It's a van, Larsen. Fran LPK says the Ramones are on the Space Ghost show. Yeah, like the Ramones, Brandy Savage, Weird Al Yankovic, Cyndi Lauper, Bjork. Yeah, they had a lot of good hosts. Yeah, and Moltar was actually the first host of Toonami before Tom took over. Albert Diaz says G4 had good animes, and Attack of the Show was good until Kevin P left. I mean, they showed some good movies and shows once in a while on G4, but like the original programming, I always found just utterly insufferable. Like X-Play, Attack of the Show, like I don't know, I just hate that like dude bro shit. Alpha Rodriguez says he first saw the original Space Ghost on a random Boomerang episode. Whenever I want to talk about it, everybody was like, yo, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Yeah, like I didn't even know there was an original Space Ghost until I was well into high school. Shinseki Evans says, I only know Space Ghost from the Batman Brave and the Bold episode. I've only seen a few episodes of that, so I don't really know what episode you're referring to. And finally, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more discussion of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. But yeah, let's talk about the Kindle Cram and the Orc romances. Boy, there was a lot of reverse harems and weird fantasy sex stuff in my darling wife's Kindle Cram. There's like orcs and reverse harems. There's like dragon sex, dragon shape-shifting sex. Like, is this what fantasy literature is now? It's just sex and weird interspecies erotica? I'm not saying we should go back to like everybody ripping off Tolkien and Robert Howard, but is this really the highest aspiration of man to have sex? Like, with like orcs and goblins and stuff? Yeah, speaking of, there's like I think it's like a new edition or something of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's like a new player handbook, and looks pretty lame. Okay. So let's see what we got here. We got the gay dwarves baking lembas bread. We have lesbian elves. And we have these orcs who, one of them has a Skrillex haircut. I don't even... Like, I don't even know what the hell this is. Like what is this? Like, I hate to use the term like, twee and D, which is what they say nowadays about how they're cutting the nuts off of Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, this looks like ass. Like, what is this? 1 second, I'm going to upload this. Like, why are they like? Why is that one orc wearing a sombrero? Like, what is this? I'm sorry, it's not a sombrero. That's a charro hat. What, is he gonna like pull out some guitar and play some mariachi? Like, what? This sucks. Like, I like the idea of like humanizing the orcs and like giving them more personality than just herders, smash humans. But you can still like you don't have to turn them into like just weird like poncho wearing like are they like illegal immigrants? What is this? Like this sucks. Why is one of them really fat in the background? Okay, Alpha Rigi, referring again to Spaceballs, says that's not what I was talking about. People randomly talking about the abridged series if you want to actually talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! I only ever watched the Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged series, so I literally know nothing that's not the abridged series. Okay, my wife says World of Warcraft millennials are just writing books now, I guess, hence all the orc stuff. Like, I understand that like people don't like the idea of like, the savage humanoids. They say it's racist. But you don't have to just make them lame and like stupid like this. Seapunk Messiah says Attack of the Show was not good PR for furries. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Yeah. Alpha Marigi says reverse harems are actually watchable as a straight male if they're actually funny. I mean, I'm sure they are. Valentinus of the Forest says, I can't believe a dungeon crawling cooking manga and anime is a better representation of D&D than whatever this is. Seapunk Messiah says, I personally like orcs looking more pig-like, way better aesthetic than the green skin variant. Yeah, I agree. And you can still humanize them and stuff. Just make them like weird pigmen. Yep, that's all it is now. Is just weird illegal immigrant orcs and lesbian coffee shop ogres and just it sucks. Everything sucks. Like IDW had that Dungeons and Dragons comic where like the orcs were still, brutal, barbarians, but they were still humanized. They still had like intelligence and they still had personalities. Like, I don't know why you can't do that. Oh, and of course they literally have like a wheelchair wizard in one of these pictures. Because again, the dungeons need to be ADA certified. Lord Humongous has got to build wheelchair ramps in his dungeons, or else that's like offensive. I don't know why I couldn't just get like a magic carpet or like, Yagram Bagarn spider legs or something. God damn. Creativity, please. Hey, some people like this, says Dan Dillon. I see a line of art direction in the 2024 Player's Guide showing people living their lives. No adventuring, no battle, slices of life showing people being people, and I love that. Pairs nicely with background art as places. Nah. There's just something about like this that really just disgusts me, and I don't know why. It's like this is all we can do in life. Just we go into a fantasy world and we just do the same shit we do in real life, just with pointy ears. Huzzah. Seapunk Messiah says if they give goblins Asian style portrayal, it's over. I did see somebody that looked kind of Asian in that crap fest. Let me see if I think she was an elf. Let's see. Yeah, there's like some kind of let me open this up. There's a greenie who looks kind of Asian, but maybe she's an elf, maybe she's a goblin. I don't know. Let me just upload this. Diablo Rojo says based dungeon meshy enjoyer. I don't know what that is. Yeah, the one on the left there. I mean, I don't know if. I mean, she looks vaguely Asian, but is she a goblin? Or is she an elf? I don't know. That's a pretty nice harp, the purple one's playing there. I mean, once in a while you can have, like, obviously, like, nobody's adventuring 24/7. You gotta, like, show, just slice of life once in a while, but just every picture is, like, just this shit. Also, to say there is no fighting. It's just Twee and D, like, gadding about in your lesbian orc coffee shop, making magical lattes. Hey, Diablo Rojo says, yeah, Dungeon Meshi Enjoyer, and Alpha Marie clarifies he was referring to Valentinus. Ponythroat says, goblins are real, just ask Zimbabweans. Ah, yes, how could I forget that? Ponythroat says, I think she's a hobgoblin. They're typically yellow-skinned. Yeah, but they, she's got very, like, delicate, human-like facial features. Maybe she's just a green elf. Sealing Messiah says, yeah, this is what we need. We need the Salamanca cartel with orc strength. Yes, it's, yeah, it's not good. Valentines of the Forest says, I should try Dungeon Meshi. Maybe I'll look into it. Daphne Halleck says, goblins have nothing on the Tokoloshi. Yeah, I like to see them tangle with the melon heads, too. Anyway, that does it for my prepared remarks. D&D sucks donkey dicks, and, yeah, you can just sit on that. Say your last pieces now, please. The Barbaric Lady says you should tell them about the dragons in New York City. Yes, there have been dragons put up to advertise House of the Dragon. They're just, smoke and mirrors, but they're still pretty cool. Ponythroat says, thoughts on rice. I enjoy it. Okay. Alpha Maria says video games and other products will be better if companies go back to insulting each other. Yeah. I mean, the console wars were good. Okay. Ponythroat says, does Genesis really do what Nintendo don't? I mean, go out of business, I guess. But yeah, I miss Sega. And, hopefully Yuji Naka can get out of prison sometime soon and get back to work. Valentinus of the Forest says, what do you think about Charlie Chan? I don't find him that offensive, to be honest. I mean, it's really not. I mean, it's a little clunky in places, certainly. But Earl Debriggers was literally writing to, portray a positive image of a Chinese person. I respect that. Now, what I think would be really cool is that and he's actually based on a real guy, but I think they should have based him more on the real guy, who was not a, folksy and genial father figure. He was more of a guy who would, like, kill you for looking at him funny. Cheng Ah Ping. Now, if they based the character more on him, I think it would be even better. Alpha Marigi says, imagine a world if Nintendo's official Twitter account referred to Sony as Soiny on a daily basis. I mean, they probably could, because I actually saw a tweet the other day saying, like, how is it that Nintendo has been absolutely stomping the video game industry with, outdated Android tablet technology, referring to the Switch? And if I had to guess, it's because, unlike the other big two, Nintendo doesn't, chase, AAA, you know, DEI, like BlackRock horseshit, putting up lesbian golf simulators. They just kind of do their same old thing, and people like that. Alpha Marigi asked, wasn't Charlie Chan popular amongst Asian Americans at the time because he wasn't offensive compared to everything else? Yes, he was. Simon Messiah says Sammo Hung should have played him. Yeah, that would have been pretty good. Okay. Ponythroat says maybe because the Switch actually has something going for it beyond being a more powerful version of the last console. Yeah, I would imagine that has something to do with it. And plus, I would also wager that it's just like people are just getting tired of the ugly women and like the lesbian golf thing that the other companies are doing and the Skinner box shit. Again, certainly have my issues with Nintendo's, output sometimes and their business policies, but I guess they're, the better alternative compared to the other two. I mean, yeah, I own a PS3. It's got great games on it, but yeah, like the new stuff, I just don't care for. And I don't even own a Switch. I mean, I'll say like there's probably only like 3 games I'd want to even play on the Switch, like the 2 new Zeldas and like No More Heroes 3. And, maybe I'll buy one for cheap at some point. But that'll be for the future, perhaps. Okay, so say your last pieces now. Ponythroat says the PS3, when you take into account the backwards compatibility, had the biggest library of any console. What about the Wii Virtual Console? Ponythroat says, assuming you have the fully backwards compatible one. I did not. Which was a bit of a problem when I bought a copy of God Hand for PS2, and I couldn't play it. Yeah, the Wii is also backwards compatible with GameCube games. I told you last week about my issues with Eternal Darkness. Alpha Marigi says they're making a Funko Pop beat 'em up. How many sales do you think they will make? I don't know. Do people still buy? I would question whether or not anybody has ever actually bought a Funko Pop with their own money, but I know people do. I own one Funko Pop. It was given to me as a gift. And Alpha Maria says that they do. So, I do have to get going places, so I'm going to kind of cut the stream here. For Larsen Halleck, this has been Larsen Halleck. All of you have a good day.